Enyonam stood in front of the mirror, admiring the gold lace she has picked for her bridal train. Her room was filled with excitement as her friends giggled and flipped through lookbooks. She had always dreamed of a grand wedding, the kind that would silence her critics. With her wedding just 2 weeks away, everything seemed perfect. Her fiancé, Elikem, a humble and kind-hearted man, had been supportive throughout, making sacrifices to meet her family's endless list of traditional requirements. But Enyonam wanted more. She had promised her 15 friends that their clothes and accessories for both the traditional and white wedding will be taken care of by her man. Elikem is an odogu, she often bragged. He will handle everything. You girls just need to show up and slay. Her friends cheered her and clapped. None of them suspected that the man she praised so much was already stretched thin financially. That evening, Elikem sat with Enyonam, scrolling through invoices and receipts. "Baby," he began gently, "you know I love you. I've done my best to meet your family's demands. But this bridal train stuff, it's too much. We can't afford it. My business is already struggling." He looked into her eyes, hoping she would understand. Instead, Enyonam's face turned cold. "I already told my guests you will pay. You want me to go back and tell them I lied? You want me to fall my hand?" She snapped, standing to her feet. Elikem tried to explain again, but she stormed out. With frustration in her voice, she told them everything that had happened between her and Elikem. He said he can't afford the bridal train anymore. Imagine, after everything he promised. The room fell silent for a moment before one of the girls, Etonam, scoffed and rolled her eyes. "That's a red flag, Enyo," she said confidently. "How can you marry a man who is already showing signs of stinginess? If he can't provide now, what makes you think he will later?" Others quickly chimed in, nodding and murmuring in agreement. "You can't come and suffer in marriage." Another added, "It's not too late to cancel everything." Though a part of Enyonam still loved Elikem deeply, she didn't want to appear weak or poor in front of her glamorous friends. Their words pierced through her doubts, feeding her ego and pride. She lifted her chin, hiding the uncertainty in her heart. "Maybe you are right. Maybe I deserve more," she said aloud, even though her chest tightened at the thought. Meanwhile, Elikem stayed up late that night, trying to think of ways to make things right. He considered borrowing more money, even though his business was already sinking. He loved Enyonam and wanted to make her happy. But something told him this demand wasn't about love. It was about appearance. Still, he wasn't ready to give up. Not yet. The pressure mounted. Enyonam's friends continued to whisper in her ear, reminding her how foolish she would look if she backed down. Etonam was the loudest. "You can't be with a man who lets you look small," she said firmly. Enyonam was torn, but pride held her in place. She hadn't even tried to understand Elikem's side. She only wanted to protect her image. 2 weeks before the wedding, Enyonam made a drastic move. She sent a message to Elikem. "I'm calling off the wedding. This isn't what I wanted anymore." Elikem was crushed. He stared at the message, stunned, then slowly sat down, feeling the weight of heartbreak. He had given his all for a woman who chose appearances over love. He called her, hoping to change her mind. He explained everything again, begged her to reconsider. But Enyonam, fueled by her friends' encouragement, refused to listen. "You failed me," she said. "I need someone who can meet my standards." And that was it. The love story ended with pain. Elikam quietly informed both families and cancelled the arrangements. He bore the shame, the financial loss, and the heartbreak, all in silence. People whispered, some mocked him, but he remained calm. Deep inside, he knew he had done all he could. News of the cancelled wedding spread quickly. Enyonam's friends comforted her, praising her bravery for walking away. They cheered her on, saying she had made the right decision. But soon, the glamour faded, the attention dwindled, and she was left with silence. No more calls about dress fittings or cake tasting. Just quiet. Enyonam thought she would feel powerful. Instead, a strange emptiness crept in. Meanwhile, Elikam focused on healing. He poured his time into his business, cut down unnecessary expenses, and slowly got back on his feet. It wasn't easy, but each day brought him closer to peace. One evening, while reviewing his accounts, he smiled for the first time in weeks. Then, out of nowhere, Etonam reached out to him. "Hi, Elikam. I hope you are okay. I know things didn't end well between you two, but I just wanted to check in." He stared at the message, confused but polite. "I'm fine. Thanks for checking," he replied. Etonam's messages became more frequent. What started as occasional check-ins turned into long conversations. She would ask how Elikam was doing, how his business was going, and offer words of encouragement. He appreciated her kindness, never suspecting anything beyond friendship. She was, after all, Enyonam's friend. As weeks passed, Etonam became more constant in his life. She dropped by his shop, brought him lunch, and helped him organize his workplace. Elikam, still nursing his wounds, found her presence comforting. She seemed different from the rest, calm, simple, and genuine. What Elikam didn't know was that Etonam had always admired him from afar, even when he was with Enyonam. She had noticed his patience, humility, and determination. Now that he was free, she saw an opportunity not just to be a friend, but to be more. One day, while they walked home from the market, Etonam gently said, "You deserve someone who sees your worth, Elikam. Someone who won't pressure you to prove it." He stopped walking and looked at her. There was something honest in her tone, something that made his heart shift. Elikam tried not to overthink what Etonam had said. He noticed how she never asked for anything, never tried to change him. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them grew deeper. One rainy afternoon, as they sat under a shade, sharing roasted corn, Etonam looked into his eyes. "Do you think you can never love again?" she asked softly. Elikam didn't answer. He thought of the pain, the betrayal. Then he looked at her. "Maybe," he said, "if the person understands what love truly means." They didn't speak more after that, but something had shifted. Elikam began to see her not as Enyonam's friend, but as a woman with her own warmth and light. Etonam too was careful. She didn't rush things. She knew his heart had scars. All she wanted was to show him that good love didn't demand perfection. It offered peace. Elikam and Etonam began to spend more time together. but as two people rediscovering joy. They laughed more, shared stories, and even took small trips to the outskirts of town. Elikem found himself smiling again, genuinely. He noticed how Etonom celebrated the little wins in his life. She wasn't impressed by how much money he made, but by how much effort he put in everything. For the first time in a long while, he felt truly seen. One evening, under the stars, Elikem gently reached for her hand. "I never imagined starting over with someone you once knew in another light," he whispered. Etonom smiled, squeezing his hand. "Maybe love isn't about how you begin, but how you grow." Their relationship blossomed quietly. No noise, no pressure, just peace. People began to notice and were surprised. Enyonom was sipping chilled drink on her porch when her sister burst into the compound, panting and wide-eyed. "Etonom is dating Elikem," she shouted, barely catching her breath. The cup slipped from Enyonom's hand and crashed to the floor. "What did you say?" she whispered, her chest tightening. "It's true," her sister replied. People saw them holding hands in town. They were laughing like lovers. Enyonom's heart pounded. 1,000 thoughts swelled in her mind. How could Etonom, her friend, do this? And Elikem, he moved on already. Tears threatened her eyes, but she blinked them away, masking her pain with pride. She picked up her phone and scrolled through social media. There it was, a picture of Elikem and Etonom at a small restaurant, smiling. The caption, "When peace feels like home." The comments were filled with heart emojis. Enyonom clenched her jaw, anger and regret battling in her chest. But the pain hit hardest that night. Alone in her room, she finally let the tears fall. Not because Elikem had moved on, but because she realized she had let something real slip through her fingers. Days turned to weeks, and Enyonom couldn't shake the growing ache in her chest. She found herself checking Elikem's page daily, hoping to see something, anything that hinted he still thought of her. But each post only showed how happy he was, how content he seemed with Etonom. Her friend noticed the change. She barely laughed, rarely joined their hangouts, and often stared blankly during conversations. "Enyo, what's wrong?" one asked. Enyonom gave a fake smile. "I'm fine," she lied, but inside, she was anything but. One afternoon, she sent a message to Elikem. "Hi, I hope you are doing well. I've been thinking a lot about us lately." She waited hours, checking her phone constantly. No reply. The message remained unread. She sent another. Still nothing. That night, she cried herself to sleep. Regret had taken hold of her heart, and it wasn't letting go. Etonom knew it was only a matter of time before Enyonom found out, but she hadn't expected it to happen so suddenly. She loved Elikem, but guilt crept in whenever she thought of Enyonom. They had been friends, one sisters in all but blood. One evening, Elikem noticed her silence. "You are quiet today," he said gently. She sighed. "Enyonom knows, and I feel like I betrayed her." Elikem took her hand. "You didn't steal me. She let me go, and you've done nothing but love me when I needed it most." Etonom nodded slowly. She wanted to believe that, but the stares from mutual friends and the whispers around town were getting louder. Still, she held on to the love they shared, trusting that time would silence the noise. News of Elikem and Etonam's relationship spread like wildfire. Some people called it betrayal. Others called it fate. Enyonam's camp accused Etonam of backstabbing. "How could you do that to your friend?" they asked. Etonam kept her dignity, refusing to respond. Elikem remained calm. He didn't owe anyone explanations. He had laughed Enyonam, and she walked away. Enyonam finally worked up the courage to speak to Etonam. They met at a quiet cafe, away from the town's eyes. "I'm not here to fight," Enyonam said. I didn't expect you of all people." Etonam looked her in the eye. "I didn't plan it, but it happened, and I love him. I'm sorry, Enyo." There was a long pause. Enyonam nodded slowly. "I guess I just never thought he would move on. Not like this." Tears welled in her eyes, but she wiped them quickly. "Take care of him. He deserves that." And just like that, they parted. No hugs, no more words. Just a silent end to a friendship that once felt unbreakable. Enyonam began a journey of healing. She started therapy, enrolled in an online course, and slowly detached from the people who had pushed her toward prideful decisions. She realized that love isn't proven through grand gestures, but through patience, understanding, and sacrifice. Meanwhile, Elikem's business flourished. With Etonam by his side, he expanded, opened a new branch, and even started mentoring young entrepreneurs. Life was booming again. Etonam became a pillar in his world. She never asked for more than he could give, and he, in return, poured all he had into loving her right. On Etonam's birthday, Elikem surprised her with a small dinner at his home. Candles lit the garden, and soft music played in the background. As they danced slowly under the moonlight, he whispered, "You gave me peace when I thought I would never find love again." He knelt down and pulled out a simple ring. "Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. "Yes, 1,000,000 times. Yes." Their joy wasn't loud, but it was deep. The kind that only comes after storms have passed. Their wedding was intimate. Close friends, family, and well-wishers. No bridal train, no over-the-top displays. Just genuine joy and two people who had found each other in the wreckage of a broken past. As they exchanged vows, Enyona watched from afar. She hadn't been invited, but she had come. She stood outside the venue, unseen, smiling sadly. She whispered, "I hope you are happy, Elikem. You deserve it." Then she turned and walked away, finally ready to let go. Married life brought new lessons. Etonam and Elikem faced challenges, but tackled them together. They communicated, forgave quickly, and always chose each other. Theirs wasn't a perfect marriage, but it was rooted in grace. Enyona focused on her healing. She started a podcast on self-love, sharing her journey openly. Surprisingly, many young women resonated with her story. Her pain became a lesson for others. 1 year later, Enyonam ran into Elikem and Etonam at a conference. The three of them exchanged polite greetings. There was no tension, only quiet respect. "You both look happy," she said, smiling. Etonam smiled back. "We are." And for the first time, Enyonam didn't feel pain, just peace. Enyonam wrote a blog post titled, "The Day I Let Love Go." It went viral. In it, she detailed her mistakes, her regrets, and how pride cost her something beautiful. But she also shared how she grew from it. Elikem read it one evening and smiled. "She is healing," he told Etonam. "I'm happy for her." Etonam nodded. "We all deserve to heal." Enyonam launched a foundation to support young women making critical life decisions. She focused on helping others avoid the mistakes she made. Her pain had found purpose. Elikem and Etonam welcomed a baby girl. They named her Amenuveve, meaning grace. Life had come full circle for all three of them. Years later, Elikem, Etonam, and Enyonam would occasionally cross paths. No bitterness, just gratitude. Each had walked a hard road, but they had come out better for it. Enyonam, now a respected voice in her community, often told her story. Sometimes she would say, "We lose what's good chasing what's loud. But when you learn, you grow, and when you grow, you bloom." And so, love in its truest form healed everyone involved, not loudly, but completely.